Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's episode of the Profit Share Podcast. I'm your host, Press McKissick, and I'm excited because we are now in our second week of the series that we've been doing where we're actually narrating our book, The Profit Share Advantage, that Linda and I wrote, where we talk all things how to help you unlock passive income within KW. So this week we're going to cover chapter 2, which is really what the chapter we call The Secret Revealed. And you're going to learn more here in a minute as you get to hear the book. But what I'll tell you is the secret is really all about the story of how we figured out that there was actually a way to accelerate growing your passive income within KW, accelerate growing your downline differently than how it was traditionally done in the past. So with that being said, I'm looking forward to you learning more as you get to learn what the secret is and how you can take advantage of it. Two quick reminders before we jump into that. I want to remind you, if you have not gotten a copy of the book, my ask is you will go to Amazon. We made the book as cheap as we could. I think it's like $5 if you have a Prime account. So we don't make money on this book. It's our way of giving back to the Keller Williams ecosystem as a whole. So my ask is you go get 2 copies, one for you and one for someone in your life that you want to bless with the opportunity of profit share. And you can find the link in the description below of however you're listening to this podcast episode. The last thing I want to mention is if you listen to chapter 1 and you're excited as you move into chapter 2, you're going to hear more about the secret, which we talk about as our profit share sites for agents. And as you learn about that tool, I would encourage you to go, again, link will be in the description, but sign up for that tool and you can actually start partaking in growing your downline from the comfort of your home all across the United States and even throughout the world, as we've had people do now, many people do, to grow their downline. So again, link in the description for you to find out more information on that. And we cannot wait to hear what you think about chapter 2.
Welcome to the Profit Share Podcast with your hosts, Linda and Press McKissick.
Hi, I'm Andy Fenstermaker, and I oversee client support, client management, and the overall profit share community around profit share sites and market center sites. Today, we're looking at Chapter 2 from the Profit Share Advantage by Press McKissick. Chapter 2, The Profit Share Secret Revealed. In April 2017, my phone rang. It was my lifelong friend, Nick Avila. Nick and I grew up together and watched as my parents' wealth grew significantly from the opportunities inside of real estate and Keller Williams. As Jim and Linda's profit share and wealth improved, so did the trips we took, our lifestyle, and virtually every area of our lives. Nick and I were amazed at the opportunity of KW and profit share. Other kids at 11 and 12 said, "We want to be doctors or veterinarians." But Nick and I wanted to be real estate agents at Keller Williams. Since Nick is a year older than me, he graduated college first and began his real estate career with KW. In April of 2017, after a few months of selling real estate, he called me with a midlife crisis. Yeah, in his early 20s. On that call, Nick shared with me how he loved real estate investing, and he loved Keller Williams, but he didn't love real estate sales. He'd spent the last few months trying to make it work, but it just wasn't a fit. That day, he asked me a question that changed everything. Do you think I could turn profit share into a business? Seeing that Nick is in the first level of my downline, I thought that was the best idea he'd ever had. We began a journey to see who was sponsoring the most agents into KW at that time. And that's when we found the #1 sponsoring agent at KW. Brent has actively sponsored over 2,000 people into his first level over the last decade and has consistently won Growth Partner of the Year in all of Keller Williams. Almost every year for a decade, he had sponsored between 100 and 200 agents into the company each year. When we heard these results, we were just blown away. We reached out and he was gracious enough to spend an hour on a call with us to share exactly what he was doing. Over that hour, I took countless pages of notes, and we learned how he was using the power of the internet, a website, emails, workflow automations, and valuable written articles, all to sponsor people all over the country into KW without ever leaving his home. Additionally, we realized out of the thousands of agents he had sponsored into KW, this process required literally zero cold calling. In fact, the majority of recruits scheduled to call with him. My mind was blown. It was like a light bulb went off in my head, and now I knew something I couldn't unlearn. I realized what he was doing allowed him to recruit 10 times the number of people in a fraction of the time it would take someone without this unique process. He had taught us a version of the secret, a process for internet recruiting that we now call profit share sites, and for that, I am forever grateful. This is the profit share advantage. The most impactful moment of that call was at the end when he stopped us and said, "Guys, my only ask is this. You go do what I've taught you." I remember thinking that was such an odd comment at the time. Why else would we be on this call if not to go implement? I soon realized what he meant, as building the secret was actually incredibly difficult. Because I made the commitment and believed in what he taught us, I spent the next 3 months building out our unique version of what we call a profit share site. I created a robust website, attached to it an email automation system, created email campaigns for leads, wrote 6 months worth of KW-related articles, wrote an ebook on how to earn 6 figures in your first year of real estate, wrote a blueprint on how to earn commissions in your first 90 days of getting licensed. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. At the time, I had been studying digital marketing and learning the craft of how you develop a relationship with people over the internet without ever meeting them face to face. Call it luck or divine placement, but I truly believe it made a significant difference in what came next. At the end of August 2017, after 3 months of countless hours of building the platform from scratch, it was finished. I'm not going to lie, I crossed my fingers and said a few prayers as we pushed our first few recruits to our website. Almost like magic, those recruits started to convert into booked phone calls with Nick. And over the next 4 years, I watched Nick's downline and profit share grow, as you can see in this chart. Nick's first full calendar year, he sponsored 79 people into Keller Williams and earned almost $9,000 in KW profit share. $9,000 is not necessarily the life-changing number Nick had sought after. However, this was true passive income that was directly deposited into his bank account on the 21st of every month. Then look what happened in year 2. He sponsored 99 people into the company. On a side note, seriously, Nick, you couldn't get one more to make it to 100? What a slacker. That second year, his profit share almost doubled to $14,960. The following year, he sponsored 128 people, and his profit share doubled to $32,005. In the fourth year, he sponsored 163 people into KW, and his profit share grew to over $50,000 in a single year. In 4 years, Nick grew his lifetime profit share from roughly $0 to over $100,000 in passive income. This is the power of the profit share advantage, the unique system anyone can use to consistently grow their downline. I still have a hard time today believing the results that have been created in such a short amount of time. After word started to get out about Nick's profit share results, I was asked to come speak throughout KW about this unique system. As I taught around the country on our process, I watched people's eyes glaze over as they realized how much they wanted to do this, but weren't able to build what I had built. The thought of doing it themselves was overwhelming. I had designed the system only to be usable by Nick, and because of that, I ran into a major challenge. Others wanted to do what Nick had done, however, they didn't want or they didn't have the expertise to recreate what I had built. That's when Superman, aka Josh Boatman, entered the story. Josh is our regional tech trainer for the Ohio Valley region, and his office is next to mine. One day, after another frustrating Zoom training on our process, Josh walked in, and he said something that would change the course of so many KW agents' lives. Press, I think I can build what you built for Nick, so anyone in KW could just plug in and use it. Would that be of value? I get emotional thinking of that moment today because he was the person I needed to help bring this vision to life. Obviously, my answer to him was a resounding yes. The next day, I locked Josh in his office for 6 months and fed him food underneath the door until he emerged with the first version of our profit share sites platform. Please, do not report me for employee abuse. It was for your benefit. Okay, jokes aside, Josh was able to use his genius to recreate the proven system I had developed for Nick in a way that any KW associate, regardless of technical expertise or agent sales, could get started with using a pre-designed recruiting website, email drips, written KW articles, and much, much more. To be honest, we thought we'd have maybe 30 people in KW who would want to leverage our system, but much to our surprise, after we made the big announcement, we have since far surpassed that number. In the first 18 months, we helped hundreds of KW associates generate over 130,000 recruiting leads and significantly grow their downlines. It's been an honor to coach and support some of the most amazing people with results like these. Jules recruited 146 people in her first 12 months. Ariel recruited 7 people in his first month alone. Jen recruited 40 people in her first 12 months. Chad and Carrie recruited 62 people in their first 12 months. Mary recruited 20 people in her first 4 months. And Heather recruited 16 people in her first 90 days. That's just a handful of the people who have been using our system to grow their downline. After we saw the incredible results from those who were using our profit share sites in the first 18 months, we made the strategic decision to reinvest in the system and launched what we call Profit Share Sites 2.0, which comes with a full recruiting CRM, pipelines, a calendar booking system, workflows, and other amazing features for our partners. The Profit Share Sites strategy. Now that you know the secret to unlocking how to consistently sponsor 15 to 150 plus people into KW each year, let's dive deeper into the strategy for how this process actually works. If you look at this process from a 10,000 foot view, you'd see it broken down into 3 sections. 1, lead generation. 2, automations. And 3, the recruiting call, including the handoff of the recruit to a local KW market center. We call this the 10-80-10 breakdown. The first 10% and the last 10% are what you do. The middle 80% is what the Profit Share Sites does incredibly well. Said differently, our Profit Share site automates 80% of the downline growth process, so you are focused on the 20% that matters the most. The 10-80-10 breakdown is like this. The first 10% is generating the recruiting lead, which we will cover in Chapter 3. The middle 80% is the Profit Share site automations and system, which will be covered in detail in Chapter 4. The last 10% is the recruiting call and handoff of a recruit to a KW market center. More on these in Chapter 5 and 6. Profit Share Sites 3 phases. Now that you understand the 10,000 foot view strategy of the 10-80-10 breakdown, let's dive deeper into the 3 phases. This section will help you better understand how we use the profit share advantage in 3 specific phases to create consistent recruiting calls on your calendar that lead to downline opportunities for you. Phase 1, driving traffic to your profit share site. Phase 1 is to drive traffic, aka eyeballs, online to your profit share site. As Nick began leveraging our first version of a profit share site, we found job boards to be a highly effective way to drive consistent traffic to his website. We would post national job ads and direct those people to Nick's site in order to apply for a real estate career with Keller Williams. These online job board sites have hundreds of millions of eyeballs monthly, and we leverage their platforms and now other social platforms to create scalable traffic. We will dive deeper into how to consistently generate online traffic in the next chapter, or in this case, the next episode. Phase 2, generating recruiting leads. Once the online traffic comes to your profit share site, we begin phase 2, generating the recruiting lead. We teach our members how to direct traffic to a specific page designed to convert that traffic into leads. Now, believe me, I'm going to step in as Andy. This is one of the biggest missed opportunities. People often overlook that page and drive traffic to their homepage. But on that page, the prospect segments themselves as they fill out the lead capture form. We have each prospect identify whether they are a licensed agent, enrolled in school, or not yet enrolled in school. There are only those 3 options available. And how you communicate with someone in each of these categories is completely different. Once they opt in, depending on how they self-identify, which real estate category they are in, the profit share site is designed to communicate with those leads and push them to the appropriate next step they need to take. The main objective is to have licensed or nearly licensed recruits schedule calls with you on your calendar based on when you are available. That means no cold calling and no hounding people. These leads are scheduling calls with you. As Linda always says, no one ever minds being on the receiving dock. That is the power of this strategy and system. We will cover generating leads and how the system works to nurture leads and schedule phone calls with recruits on your calendar in more detail in Chapter 4. And Phase 3, recruiting call and market center handoff. Phase 3 is the final step in the process where you have a recruiting phone call and then hand off that recruit to a local KW office. Again, the magic here is these recruits are scheduling calls on your calendar and genuinely want to speak with you about getting started in real estate at KW. On average, most of our members are able to keep their recruiting calls between 20 and 30 minutes. And aside, my latest one was 9. After the recruiting call, based on how close the recruit is to completing their licensing exam, you would make the introduction on their behalf to a local KW office. There's a skill set involved in having an effective recruiting call and how you hand that recruit off to a KW office. We will cover this phase in more detail in chapters 5 and 6. Now you know the profit share secret. As you can see, this is not hard. If you are someone who can follow a proven process and system, you too can have success with consistently growing your downline over time. What I love most about this unique process is that we were able to design it in such a way that anyone can plug in and follow the process to get started. It's not rocket science. It's highly leveraged recruiting. This system has lowered the barrier to entry so that now anyone in KW, regardless of experience, influence, or any other limiting factor, can grow their downline. In this chapter, you have likely had the same epiphany I had in 2017. You now realize that there is a better, more leveraged, and simpler way to seriously grow your downline. I can tell you with confidence that using a profit share site is the secret process and the way to consistently sponsor 15 to 150 people a year into Keller Williams. We will spend chapters 3 through chapter 7 in this book going deeper into these 3 phases we outlined above so that you can learn the best practices and skills involved to follow this process. Additionally, make sure to check out chapter 8 to see how to get a free bonus chapter that's not included in this book. So keep watching. Finally, chapter 9 was written specifically for market center leadership. So if that applies to you, don't miss it. This chapter unveils our groundbreaking profit share sites for market centers process, or what we now call market center sites. These were designed to revolutionize how you scale local growth and build a thriving office. You now know what the profit share advantage is. Now, let me help you learn how it works and how you can implement this process to significantly scale your downline. If you are open and willing to dive deeper with me over the next few chapters, then keep reading, or listening, or watching. I invite you to join me and Linda on this journey. If you are going to make a career here at KW, build your wealth through profit share so you can create freedom and options for what matters most to you. That being said, in next week's episode, we'll dive into the next chapter as we discuss how to master the art of driving traffic and generating recruits online.
All right, we're back. Andy, great job on reading through chapter 2. Really excited to talk. This is probably one of my favorite chapters because I get to share the story of the journey with Nick and watching his life transform and watching us do something that we didn't realize we could do was just such a fun journey. So thanks for reading us through the book again. You're the redheaded Morgan Freeman of this book. So great job.
So about this chapter, you talked about a couple of the pivotal moments, but are there any other pivotal moments that you really want to zoom in on in the journey that you and Nick took?
Yeah, to get here. Well, a couple, again, I go into it. I don't tell the full details, right? Obviously, in a book, you give what's relevant. But thinking back, pivotal moments with Nick, when he realized that real estate sales wasn't for him. But again, I go back to this, what we talked about in the last episode, where sometimes your worst moment can become a great moment. And just like Gary Keller asked the question of how could we build a real estate company no one would ever want to leave, Nick asked the question, could I build a business at a profit share? What a brilliant question to ask, right? That led us on a journey. So that would be one. The other would be our call with Brent, who was willing to share with us what he had done, and then for us to take that and evolve that model in a way that would work for Nick and for what we were trying to do. And I still have the notes that I took with Brent on my desk that I reference from time to time. It's like 2.5 pages of notes. And I always love that because it's just a reminder to me that the conversations that you never ask you never get what you don't ask for. And so asking for that call with Brent and him being gracious to give us time was another pivotal moment that changed the course of Nick's profit share journey and my profit share journey. And then the last one I would say is when Josh walked into my office after a really bad day that I had. And I needed some encouragement because I was teaching people how to do what I had done for Nick and telling them to go build a website and do all this work, all this techie stuff. And no one was going to do that. I needed enough pain to realize that no one was going to do that. And then when Josh walked into my office and said, hey, I think I can build this so that anyone can use it. And it's one thing to do something for yourself. It's another thing to build something that can help a lot of people. And I think that, and then I think later in the book we go into some more specific stories about people we've helped, but we've just the stories that are outlined in the book just are the best part of it for me, getting to help people who would have never been able to do this.
Absolutely. And it strikes me once again, worst moment leads to something absolutely amazing.
Yep.
One thing that stuck out to me was you talked about you both wanting, other people are wanting to be doctors and astronauts. You guys wanted to be real estate agents. I mean, talk about
pretty
an
cool,
identity
right? As a 12-year-old.
crisis. Identity crisis right there.
Yeah.
He realizes after all this time wanting to do this, he kind of doesn't like it.
Yep.
And then something great came out of it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Because he realized what he did love, right? Okay, well, I do love this company, and there is a path in my company to benefit from loving this company. So, again,
Absolutely.
He asked the right question at the right time.
Yep. I'd like to touch on the evolution, because we talked about 3 kind of different things here. You've got, the original you have the conversation with Brent. You've got the original version that was like Nick's one-off profit share site.
Yep.
And then the original version that Josh built, and now basically like 2.0. Can you touch on like some of the evolution and some takeaways from that?
Yeah, I think with anything, whatever you do should get better over time. And that's what's cool is everything was better than before, right? So the first version, obviously, that I built was bubblegum and tape. I used all these different tech tools, and I was just figuring out stuff as I went. Like, it was totally bubblegum and tape. And it worked, right? Like, the logic held true. And also, you talk about being at sort of the right time or the right place. And I had been studying digital marketing at the time, like, which really, what is digital marketing? How you build relationships with people on the internet that you're never going to see in person. That's when I think digital, like, what is the skill set of marketing, online marketing? That's what it is, right? And so I'd been learning about that. Plus, then I have this call with Brent. And so the two ideas sort of married into one another. And then Josh comes in with a more technical background to figure out how to make this something that other people could use. And then from there, we even had another evolution of the tool where the first version of it that Josh built, the person, there was no CRM attached to it. It was all just like, trust us, run the process, we're going to put appointments on your calendar, that's it. Which was awesome because of its simplicity. But the more people who used it, the more we're like, hey, I have a bunch of these leads that haven't done anything. And I have no way to like send them a one-off email or like reach out to them and do anything with these people without making it really hard to do. So the evolution of our tool became basically a full-on recruiting profit share CRM in a sense, right? Now, the good news is we built it in such a way that it was already done for you. You don't have to touch anything if you don't want to. But if you do, you can actually now communicate with those leads. And I think you've done that some, Andy, because you started using the tool. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Before I jump into that, I think the wild thing, if I think back to that, because I remember I started on that original version as well. And it was like, we had the platform, we had all the automations built into it, but the calendar integration was separate. The the pipeline was separate if you wanted to use one, and so it was like, and now it's all just housed in one nice, easy system. I love it.
Yep.
So, so I joined as Linda and Press's like digital marketing director, doing a lot of the marketing stuff, sale, jack of all trades really when it comes down to it. And I was not a licensed agent, never been in real estate, but what I do have is a little bit of confidence. So,
hey, that goes a long way.
I was like, if we're going to be working on this system, I might as well, I'm part of KW, I might as well use it for myself and see how it works. And before I even got licensed as an agent, I'm licensed now, I was able to recruit 1-2 dozen people into the company, and the process was incredibly simple when you follow the play. And I think that's what the secret is that it's actually quite simple when you think of it. If you have the tool to use.
Well, and Andy, you put an exclamation mark on a point that I think is really important, which is that before us coming up with this system that people can use, building your profit share was really an influence game. You better be a Linda McKissick, right? You better have influence. You've got to be in real estate already doing production, and then use that influence to bring people over to KW, right? Whereas what you did without even technically, like, you're in KW, but you're not yet licensed, so you're in this weird in between, would have never been able to grow your downline. Like, what licensed agent is going to necessarily listen to Andy before Andy's licensed kind of situation? But with this tool, because it's a totally different play, and predominantly we're recruiting newer people into the industry, or you're really acting as a source of a direction for people, right? Like, oh, you're moving from Texas to Florida and you're looking to join a Keller Williams office, let me be the person to connect you, right? You move from like in a tractor to more like resource director in a
100%.
sense. So I love the positioning with it, because now truly like your story highlights that anyone in KW can do it, which I love for our admins in KW on teams, are people in market centers who aren't actively selling real estate. There's just so many applications of people who profit share wasn't a real thing for them that it can be today.
Yeah, and I'm going to kind of leave us with one final thought. I'm going to share some cool little secrets myself in a future episode of how I did some of this and how I kind of got my mindset around this. And honestly, it kind of comes back to another person that Press highlighted in this chapter, which is Heather, and how she, how she built kind of the same way that I did, as someone who was more of an admin on a team, doing the recruiting calls and all of that kind of stuff. But
yeah, she added 16 people in her downline in 90 days. That's crazy as an admin.
Incredible. So if you want to hear that, subscribe, hit the follow button. All of the different things. Follow us on YouTube, where the videos of this are. You can follow us if you're listening on on whatever podcast platform you're listening from, and of course, you can join our mailing list and be notified of new episodes as well. We are kind of in the process of transitioning the podcast to weekly, so these are going to be more frequent. We're going to provide more value for you as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, Andy, thank you, sir, and we'll see you guys on the next week's episode.